The whole will be in order. And first topic, Jan, it's yours.
Thank you, President Person and members of the council. Good evening. Tonight we're here for an overview of the proposed biennial budget adjustments. The mid-biennium budget adjustment amendments are intended to update general fund revenue projections with changed conditions, to make housekeeping adjustments to incorporate prior council actions, to make adjustments for unexpected costs and proposed departmental changes. And in order to accomplish the mid-biennium update, we have to set the property tax for 2020. The council needs to adopt an ordinance for the budget amendments, and then we also have a couple of fee adjustments. This is the calendar for the mid-biennium review. Tonight we're doing, as I mentioned, we're going to give you an update of the revenues and the proposed adjustments for 1920 and 1919 and I'll get the right center here, 2019 and 2020. On October 21st, we will hold our first of two public hearings on the revenue and property tax levy and the mid-by adjustments. Then at November 4th, we can return for follow-up council questions as needed and council deliberation, and then finalize the council committee report. Later that evening, at the regular council meeting, we will hold the second and final public hearing. The committee will adopt the report, and then the ordinance will be up for first reading. November 18th, at the regular council meeting, we will council will review the ordinances for a final reading and adoption. On the revenue side, for property tax, state law allows cities to increase their base property tax levy by the lower of inflation or 1%. The state law also allows cities to increase the base property tax levy for new construction. We only have preliminary information at this point from King County, with our property assessed at $19.7 billion. The 2020 proposed budget contemplates $21.1 million in property tax revenue, and we're not proposing any changes. However, as King County updates their numbers for us, we will also update the ordinance to reflect those numbers. The historical reductions in property taxes that you see for 2017 and 18, those are the result of the formation of the Regional Fire Authority, when the city made a commitment to adjust its property tax downward when the Fire Authority formed. And also in 2019, you see a minor increase of $1.1 million, and that was for the debt service payments for the Parks Capital Improvement Bond issue. This slide reflects the potential adjustments for the lesser of that 1% or inflation plus new construction. This rate is just under $1.11 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. It's lower than the $1.14 rate for 2019, and that decreased rate is the direct result of year-over-year growth in assessed valuation. Again, the numbers from King County are preliminary, so they are subject to change. And as you can see from this spreadsheet, there are no prior year refunds included in there yet, so we will see if that number changes as a result of their final numbers. And then again, we will update the property tax ordinance once we have that information from King County.
Just a second question on that.
Sure.
You have the 2020 maximum statutory levy at $52 million. So we can raise to that point if the council so wanted to?
That is correct. We gained a lot of capacity. We didn't lose our upper limit on capacity as a result of lowering it for the Regional Fire Authority. So we do have those taxes available in the future should council choose to access them.
Okay. So that's what the difference is between, we could levy the 52 million, but you're proposing 21 million, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We're at 21.1 with the current budget.
Okay. I just want to be sure that the public knows that we're taking it easy on them.
Yes, there's no proposed increase other than your 1%
Right.
and the new construction.
And basically, we always consider that our cost of doing business almost goes up by at least 3% a year.
That or
mean,
more sometimes.
Math is,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you.
Good point. You'll hear me talk about that a little later in the presentation, too.
Okay.
In terms of sales tax, this slide represents the actual historical and budgeted sales tax revenue. Overall, 2019 collections year-to-date are pretty much on track with the budget. The last annexation sales tax credit that the city received was in mid-2018. And on an ongoing basis, as we've talked about previously, that results in approximately $3 million loss per year from that source. We did begin receiving the local revitalization funding sales tax credit starting in 2019, which you'll recall that's supporting the LRF bond issue. So we received $250,000 for 2019, and then we will be getting $500,000 for that bond payment prospectively for over a 25-year period. We are not recommending any change in the mid-biennium update for the sales tax revenue. This slide represents the last 2 years and the current year's estimated sales tax by category. As you can see, retail is our highest at 28%, followed by services at 24%, auto and fuel sales at 18%, construction at 15%, manufacturing at 7%, wholesaling at 6%, and miscellaneous at 2%. General retail, automotive, manufacturing, and wholesale sectors have all seen moderate increases in 2019, but this is somewhat offset by the decreases in construction.
That'd be mainly 405, right?
There was considerable construction projects
And
in the
then
prior
down at the
year.
the
Southport.
Southport.
Southport, that is correct. Historically, utility taxes have been one of the stronger and more stable general fund sources. However, a number of factors in recent years have caused these taxes to decline. Electric and gas were a bit higher in 2017, but presumably because of maybe a colder winter or rate increases, electric and gas, which represents 42% of our overall utility taxes, is lower by about $400,000 per year. In addition, landline telephone services have continued to decline as customers choose cellular over landlines. Cell phones utility taxes have also dropped off dramatically as a result of the fact that cellular data services are exempt from utility tax under the Internet Tax Freedom Act. In the past, cellular companies would apply this exemption to the standalone data plans only, but at this point, the companies are accounting for those services in a bundled manner and just estimating the amount of data services involved. And so what we have seen is resulted in approximately $900,000 per year less from utility taxes on cellular. So overall, for utility taxes, we're recommending a reduction of $650,000 in both 19 and 20. B&O taxes are shared between the general fund and the Transportation Capital Improvement Fund. Business and occupation taxes for 2017 and 18 included some one-time revenue as businesses started to understand the new tax which was implemented in 2016 and began to comply with the new law. As such, from the start, we conservatively budgeted B&O tax because we just weren't sure exactly how much of that was one-time and would be ongoing available. So we are making an adjustment here because the B&O taxes have been coming in better than expected. So we are proposing a $1.5 million increase in the budgeted amount in 2019 and a $1.2 million increase for 2020. We are also making an adjustment for business license revenue because that's been outperforming our original budget by approximately $250,000. So we're proposing an adjustment there for 2019 as well. In terms of development fees, several large projects beginning in mid-2015 to mid-2017 have accounted for some of the large bumps in the years 2015, 16, and 17 in building permits. However, development fees are expected to underperform the original budget by approximately $800,000 per year in 2019 and 2020. So that's a reduction of approximately 15% that we're proposing for the new, at the mid-biennium update. Real estate excise tax is restricted for capital purposes. We've also used it to fund a portion of the general government debt service cost. Real estate excise tax is unpredictable, so consequently, we tend to budget it very conservatively. The 2019 collections, however, are expected to outperform the original budget by $800,000. So we are proposing a change for 2019. However, no additional budget adjustment is proposed for 2020 in order to just remain conservative. State shared revenues include liquor profits, liquor excise tax, fuel tax, criminal justice sales tax, and other miscellaneous revenues. Overall, projected revenue for 2019 is pretty much on track with the original budget, so we are not proposing any adjustments for the state shared revenues. There are a few other proposed adjustments to revenues. Gambling taxes were projected conservatively when we prepared the 2019-2020 budget, but they are running a little bit higher. So we are proposing $800,000 in increase for 2019 and for 2020. Fines and forfeits are also running higher than expected as a result of the photo enforcement program. So we are proposing a $500,000 per year increase there. Public safety revenues include probation, sentence monitoring, record checks, school resource officers, private security, and electronic home detention. And we expect revenues to be approximately $200,000 per year higher. Interest earnings are also expected to be higher than the original budget, and that's primarily due to increases that we're seeing in interest rates.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Just to kind of explain to the public, and it just kind of hit me, is when we're talking about doing these increases, it's really not that we're increasing the budget, but what we're doing is making the money that is available to be used, that this money's coming in, so we're not taxing more money, taxing somebody to get more dollars. These are just that we have been very conservative at doing our projections when we do our budgeting, and now we're reaping the benefit of that by having these monies coming in. And just in our budgeting system, we have to take account and get it into the budget so we can use it if we need. Is that a?
You are completely correct. This
Okay.
is just making it more realistic numbers, and it is not any increase in taxes.
Yeah, that's what I want to be sure. We're talking about, I was thinking, we're getting this, like,
Yeah.
we're not taxing anybody any
Yeah.
more money, and I just want to be sure that that is
Yes.
plain. Thank you.
You're welcome. In terms of decreases, admissions taxes are lagging behind the original budget, so we are proposing $100,000 less per year for admissions tax. Parks and recreation fees are underperforming by approximately $200,000 per year, and that's primarily due to the implementation of a new software system. And the software system does not recognize the revenue until the service is performed. So that is just creating a lag in the collection. It is not because we're not collecting as much revenue. So it's simply a matter of the system. And so we're proposing a $200,000 per year reduction there. This slide simply summarizes those revenue changes that I've been mentioning all along. So you will see each of them in the utility taxes, B&O tax, business license, and so on and so forth, the changes that we are proposing to make. And then we have some funds which we are closing and simply shifting that over to the general fund as just to clean up our fund structure a bit. This slide represents all of the proposed changes on the expenditure side for 2019 and 2020. Some of these, a great deal of the changes that we are including with the mid-biennium update, have already been discussed by council and approved by council. Some are teed up for discussion, and a couple of them we'll discuss this evening or in near-term committee of the whole meetings. This slide provides a listing of the proposed changes which are being brought forward as part of the mid-biennium review. Note that the items are listed, if you look at that second to last column marked status, it tells you that a number of these, as I mentioned, have already been approved. And so just as an example, you approved the census program manager, I think it was just within the last couple of weeks here. The judge is a new one. That one is coming forward for your discussion next week. There are a number of reorganizations, for example, our tax and license groups reorganization, and then the community and economic development reorganization, and then some of the reclassifications that were previously brought forward, for example, for the golf professionals. So those were all previously approved. The only other new proposal is on that last line. It's from transportation. It represents the conversion of a half-time secretary to a full-time position, and this is simply to address workload issues. All of the changes proposed on this slide for FTEs were previously discussed and are approved by council as part of various reorganizations and reclassifications as well. Again, you see some of the tax office positions, the reclassification for the deputy chief, the reorganization that came forward from Human Resources and Risk Management. So those were all previously approved by council. And then this last slide of the position changes are, again, previously discussed by council as part of various reorganizations and reclassifications. You can also see on this slide the two capital project coordinators, capital project manager. Those are part of the Parks bond issue, and council had approved that previously, that we were authorizing those FTEs to do the work on the bond issue, and they will be paid out of bond proceeds. And then the last two, it simply involves a correction between facilities and the Human Services Fund. This slide shows the projected net impact on the city's ending fund balance for the biennium. We ended 2018 with a bit higher fund balance than we had projected when we adopted the budget. We ended with $44.5 million rather than $42.8 million, which was the projected number when we adopted the budget. I will talk a little bit more about this impact with the next slide. When I presented the 2019 and 2020 original budget to council, it reflected an ending fund balance for 2024 of $5 million, and you can see that is somewhat lower. Renton, like all other cities, continues to be challenged over the long term to balance budget given property tax limitations. As you mentioned, President Parson, the property tax is limited to 1%, and we know our costs grow at a much higher rate than that. We also know that we reduced the property tax pretty significantly as a result of our commitment to the Regional Fire Authority. We know that, again, our costs for various benefits like medical and pension and those type of things grow at a faster clip than that 1% limitation. And perhaps mostly importantly, we knew when we adopted the 2019 and 2020 budget that we were going to lose the annexation sales tax credit. That's a loss of $3 million per year. This council had the foresight, however, to set aside reserves, and we are able to somewhat mitigate that effect each year by using approximately $900,000 per year from that fund balance to help offset that loss. Given all this, you'll note that with this proposed biennial budget adjustment, we end 2020 with a projected $30.8 million in reserves. That's a pretty healthy ending fund balance. Hopefully, with the conservatism built into the budget and continued strong economic conditions and our continued efforts to be lean and identify efficiencies, we will continue to see the forecast improve over time. We always look for ways to improve our financial outlook. And as I mentioned, when we adopted the 2019 and 2020 budget, because we know that we are using some fund reserves, we will have to continue our discussion about long-term financial sustainability as we start working on the development of the 21-22 budget. In addition to the general fund, there are some non-general fund adjustments that we will bring forward with the proposed ordinance. There is an adjustment for debt service and projects related to the local revitalization funding bonds and the parks bond issued, both of which were issued in 2019. There's a transfer to provide full funding for Williams and Wells. There's an adjustment to provide funding for Duval Avenue Northeast. And we are also proposing to consolidate the city's arts program into a newly named municipal arts fund, which won't increase the overall cost except for a $15,000 maintenance fund, money that we're going to set aside for maintaining the art. But that's going to be brought forward by Community Economic Development sometime here in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, we just learned on Friday that we need there's going to be one more adjustment that didn't make it into the PowerPoint because it was so late. What we discovered was that we had, the Family First Fund has set aside money, council had appropriated money to fund that project. However, at year end, it all rolled into fund balance, and we need to appropriate it and make sure that it gets into the expenditure account. So we will be bringing you an adjustment to just make that correction. This slide represents all of the funds combined and the consolidated version of all of the adjustments that we're proposing, exclusive of the one for Family First that I just mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, we will have a couple of fee updates that we'll bring forward as part of the mid-biennium update. The final fee list of adjustments will be included with the resolution that will be brought forward for council consideration. The changes include correction for street naming honorary installation cost at $250, and then an update to the 2020 school impact fees for the current legislation.
Now, and I just want to call out again for the public, is that the impact fees for the schools is something that is a real screwball law passed by the state legislature that says that schools can have these impact fees, and they set them, but the council, each city has to collect them. And we don't even get any money for helping for that collection. Matter of fact, every once in a while, we end up paying them interest because we don't move the money fast enough. So I just want the public to, as they hear this, when we're talking about impact fees, it's not us doing it, it's the school district.
You are correct. It's simply a pass-through.
It's passed through and it will cost us money.
So the actions, again, required to update the mid-biennial budget are to set the property tax for 2020, to adopt the budget amendments by ordinance, and then update the fee schedule by resolution. And tonight on your consent calendar, you will see that just the approval of the calendar, which includes the public hearings and the dates for the mid-biennium review. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Seeing none, well done. We got through it in record time. So, thank you, and we don't have any, do we have any emerging issues that the council wants to talk about?
Nope.
Nope. In that case, we are adjourned.